Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today in this special series, Stories with Saagar, presented to you by the Art of Living Children and Teens. And we are featuring a very special guest today with us, Miss Deeya Bajaj. She's been a mountaineer, a kayaker, and she's done wonderful in this wonderful interaction, climb every mountain, because at the age of 25 she has climbed 6 out of the 7 summits, including the Mount Everest, along with her father Padam Shri Mr. Ajit Bajaj way back in 2018. And she's here today to share some life stories with us. So thank you so much for joining in, Deeya. It is so wonderful to have you here with us in this show. And yeah, I mean, totally thrilled. And we have children joined in from across the globe to watch this show. So, Deeya, you want to share something? You had a quick presentation that you were mentioning about.
Sure. So I just want to say firstly, thank you for having me, Sagar. I'm super excited to be here and speak to everyone, and share some stories from some of my expeditions. And so yes, just to start off, I had a couple of pictures just to sort of explain to you, how this all started out. So I've actually been going on expeditions and doing all of these things since a very young age. I think since before I could even walk, I went on my first hike. And that's because my father is very, very much into adventure. So he was actually the first Indian to ski to the North and the South Pole. And
Yeah.
I'll show you a picture, but here I'm gonna share my screen with all of you. Can you see my screen?
I think it should be up in a moment.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
we're ready right now. Yes.
My father was the first Indian to ski to the North and the South Pole. So, before I even actually started walking, I was out, on adventures, hiking and camping with him. This is actually a picture of me where I was barely 4 or 5 years old. And, as you can see,
Wow.
I was already
Yeah,
in a harness and wanted to get out and climb everything anywhere.
absolutely.
Um, and this was actually one of my first major expeditions when I was 14 years old, sea kayaking in Greenland. And I think it was during this expedition where I realized how much I love the outdoors. It was a 14-day expedition where we were kayaking amongst the icebergs of Greenland. And it was just such an incredible experience, that I realized that this is something that I keep want to do and I want to keep doing. And while we were there, we actually got to see the Greenland Ice Cap. And
Wow.
as some of you might know, the Greenland Ice Cap is the second largest chunk of ice on our planet. And, I made this offhand remark to my father. I said it would be so cool to come back here one day. And with a father like mine, you can't really make these offhand comments. 3 years later, when I was 17, we actually did come back, and this time to ski across the Greenland Ice Cap, a journey
Wow.
of 550 kilometers, spanning 19 days. And it was very, very cold. Temperatures went down to minus 30 degrees Celsius, and it was
Yeah.
24 hours of daylight as we were above the Arctic Circle. And this is a picture of one of our team members, Tony, actually, who and I don't know if we can have any guesses about what it is on his mustache,
Of course.
but and it's not snot. It's actually the condensation from his breath, because
Wow.
that's how it was. So these are just some pictures from that first expedition. I was 17 at that time and the youngest in the world to have attempted this, when I did it. And Dad and I were the first Indians, so of course unfurling our national flag was an amazing experience,
Yeah.
at the end of the expedition. But that was my first major expedition, and since then, I've definitely caught the bug, and I keep going back and getting more. And I'll keep sharing pictures as the questions come in and as we progress through this. Through
Yes,
this.
please do. Please do. So my first question to you is, which of course is the theme of this interaction, in its totality. Yeah. In its totality, what does it really take to climb a mountain?
So again, there are many mountains, but and each of them with varying levels of difficulty. I think in its totality, it takes physical fitness. Oh well, I would say firstly it takes the will. You have to
Yeah.
want to get up there. You have to be able to dream big, have the will, have the determination, and then, of course, physical and mental strength is very, very important.
Fantastic. And second question that wish to ask is, in your experience, how much do you attribute of who you are today to experiential learning outside the classroom? Because from what we have, I mean, what we are able to see and what the viewers would be able to see during the course of this interaction, that since the age of 14, like they just mentioned, she's gone on numerous expeditions across the geography of this entire world, conquering many mountains. So, how much of who you are today would you attribute to experiential learning?
I think a big, big part of who I am is, I think, you know, school and studies, it teaches you a
Okay.
lot, of course, in terms of, being a well-rounded individual and learning.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, adventure and experiential learning, it develops character. It develops these other parts of your personality. It gives you a personality, and it,
Right.
it teaches you so many things. It teaches you, I think, adventure has taught me how important it is to be prepared. When you're outdoors, right, a small mistake that you make can lead to very, very
Absolutely.
large consequences. And so you
Absolutely.
have to be so careful and so ready for each and everything that you could possibly encounter. And so being
Yeah.
prepared, there's no substitute for good preparation. And I think I've really, really understood that through my expeditions. Secondly, when you're out there and you're facing some of the most challenging things, challenging situations that Mother Nature can possibly throw at you. There have been
Yeah.
times where I've been stuck in storms. Temperatures have gone down to minus 45 degrees Celsius with the wind chill
Wow.
factor.
Yeah.
And the wind speeds have been so high that it literally feels like you're going to be blown off the face of the earth. I think in situations like that, it's very easy to want to give up. In your head, you're saying, why am I doing this? But
Yeah.
it's also in situations like that where you realize how important it is to stay positive. The minute you start thinking negative, the minute you look at something and you're like, I can't do this, you're not going to
Right.
be able to do it. Right? I think it just taught me to, like, no matter what you do, to always treat everything with an extremely positive and focused mindset, and be really good to yourself and positive to yourself, and keep telling yourself, I can do this, and your team members.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine scenes from movies like Vertical Limit and Everest to envisage what kind of challenges it would have been, but cannot even remotely imagine what it would experience be like. So we do have some very young viewers joined with us, and in fact, as part of our team, we have some young children as well who have joined us from different parts of the country. So I would like to welcome Aditi, who has joined us from Himachal Pradesh. So Aditi has just recently given her a nice haircut. As you can see, she's looking very cute with it. So Aditi, you have few questions to ask Diya ma'am. Please shoot.
Okay, so my first question is, after the lockdown opens, what is the first thing you will do?
I think goes to that. I'm going to go somewhere in the hills and spend lots and lots of time somewhere remote, and yeah, definitely want to go on a hike or go visit. Yeah, somewhere outdoors.
Okay, because I heard that you had to go on an expedition and on May 2020 and you
Mhm.
were not able to do it. So that's why.
Oh, that's yeah. So we were actually, I was supposed to be out on a mountain right now, actually trying to climb Mount Denali in Alaska, which is in North America. But of course, due to this entire situation, we had to postpone our trip. So we'll be climbing that next year in May 2021. And that's because the period where you can climb this mountain is a short window. So even once the lockdown opens, we can't go back because you can't climb the mountain then. There's only a very certain time of the year that you can go and climb it.
Great. Aditi, you have another question?
Yes. So my next question is, did you have any last minute plans or changes in your adventures and expeditions, or was it all planned?
So, when it comes to major expeditions, you do have to spend a lot of time planning and preparing. So it's very, the way you plan for one expedition is going to be very, very different compared to another. So it is difficult to sort of change that, last minute, or especially for the more bigger climbs. Definitely, if it's a small hike or a small, a day sort of situation, it's easy to change plans. But for the more extreme adventures, it's definitely always been planned months in advance. You're double checking your gear, itinerary, everything. So you plan it down to like the smallest detail, and then there's no room for change over there. But with the smaller casual ones, definitely I've done some,
Improvisations.
Okay.
improvisations indeed.
Yes. One more question, Aditi.
Okay. So my next question is, out of the four highest mountains which you have climbed, which one would you like to climb again?
You know, each and every mountain has had its amazing experiences, and the most amazing thing about climbing in each continent is that you get to experience different cultures and meet different people, try different foods. I love eating, so it's always cool to see. It's so different what they eat in South America compared to what they eat in Africa, and I think each and every expedition has been so unique in that sense. I mean, if I could, I would love to go back everywhere again and do it all, because these experiences are just absolutely fantastic and amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Aditi. We'll be
Those
back to you.
were
We do have another very young, dynamic girl who is actually studying in 12th standard and is a science student. And she has joined us from Vadodara, Gujarat. So, would like to welcome Venu Patel. Venu, are you with us? Yes, she's there.
Yeah,
So, Venu, you have some
yeah,
questions for Deeya ma'am?
yeah, sure. So my first question is for how do you measure success of an adventurer?
How do you measure success of an adventurer?
Yeah.
This is a really good question. I think a lot of times people say, it's the person who's climbed. The whoever climbs the most, that they are the most successful. But in my opinion, I think to measure success, there are two things. Firstly, how safe the person is, right? So there's no point in climbing a summit and then injuring yourself or worse on the way down. So I think a smart adventurer, a person who understands that the mountain is supreme or that nature is supreme, and is very humble about climbing, and understands that it's a privilege to be able to go out and climb the mountain. I think that person is a successful adventurer. And I would say, secondly, perhaps a person who gives back, right? Who not only goes out and climbs, but then goes and spreads words of encouragement, motivation, tries to sort of give back in any way possible. And a really good example of this is actually Sir Edmund Hillary, who was one of the first two people to climb up to the summit of Mount Everest. I think what made him so successful, in my opinion, as an adventurer, is the fact that he came back right after he used his fame to actually then do a lot of good work for the Sherpa community. So he himself went and built a lot of schools and did a lot of amazing relief work for the Sherpa community in Nepal after his climb. And I think that, in my opinion, is what makes a successful adventurer.
Okay. Wow, that was like huge. Yeah. So my second question for you is, what does leadership mean to you? Can you please share an instant of a team player in advisor times?
In
Yeah.
Okay. So, in my opinion, I think leadership, there are very, very many different forms of leadership. Um, I think when it comes to mountaineering specifically, if you're a leader, um, you have to take your team along with you, right? When you're making decisions, you have to make your decisions keeping your entire team in mind. And in those situations, there aren't any people that you can just leave behind or say that, oh, this person's not performing. So you have to make decisions in a way where the entire team can move forward together, because the success of the team, and the success of the expedition is, it's very, very important that everyone comes back safe and happy and together. So I think that a successful leader is probably one who understands team dynamics and takes the entire team along with them when they make decisions. I think that, in my opinion, is a very good leader. When it comes to these times, again, I think the most important thing to be aware about is on an expedition, right? You're often stuck with the same number of people for days and days and days on end. And sometimes the conditions are really hard. You might be stuck in a tent for 5 days with nothing to do because the weather is so bad that you can't move out. Now, in those situations, or you might be outside, actually physically climbing, and there might be adverse weather. And in those situations, it's so easy, right, to get cranky, to get irritable, and then be mean to the people that are around you. So, one small word, you just snap at them. You're just like, you're annoyed, you're frustrated. They say something, you think it's a stupid question. You're like, and you're mean to them. And oftentimes, that small amount of negativity can impact the other person so much that it can actually break that entire expedition, and it can actually make you unsuccessful. It can lead to the entire team sort of the morale going down. So I think in adverse conditions, one of the most important things is to be very, very aware of the people around you as a leader, and to sort of be a constant source of support and positivity. And you can't make errors in the sense that you can't be negative, you can't be rude. You constantly have to be there for your team, and you have to be strong and supportive.
Okay. Yeah. So next question is, why did you decide to become a mountaineer?
Why did I decide to become a mountaineer? I think I have loved adventure ever since before I could even walk, and it's definitely been a big part of my life. And in some sense, I would say I think the mountains chose me. And when I went on my first adventure course when I was 12 at the Nehru Institute of Mountaineering, I just loved it so much. I was there for 2 weeks. I didn't call my parents once. They thought I'd disappeared off the face of the earth. And I just enjoyed it so much that I knew that this was something that I wanted to keep doing, and there's been no turning back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I think that bit when you shared about being in a camp, being in a tent for days on end, and really, really keeping yourself calm and not snapping at people. I mean, actually, there's a lot for us to learn, especially at our workplaces. And it becomes very easy for people to just lose their calm and get agitated with their co-workers. So yes, we do have a doctor who has joined us, Vinutha. She's from Bangalore, and she also has certain questions to ask. We'll come back to Venu and Aditi shortly. So yes, hi Vinutha. Can you please increase the volume a little? Hi, you keep the mic. Yes, microphone. Yes, so you can ask your question.
So my first question to you is, when you travel, when you go on a journey, you go through a range of emotions. So how has this changed you as a person?
Vinita, sorry, I can't hear you. I heard how can.
I'll repeat the question on our behalf. So when you travel, you go through a range of emotions. How has this changed you as a person? Is our question.
That's such a good question. When you travel, when you're going on expeditions, you can experience the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I think, if anything, going on these expeditions and since a young age has sort of taught me how to be more balanced, right? These fluctuations, they do tend to happen, and no matter how hard you try to control it, it's definitely so much easier to say, hey, everyone, be positive. There are, of course, times where you feel frustrated, where you're tired. But it's definitely taught me how to recognize when I'm starting to, sort of veer towards negative emotions. And it's definitely taught me to then recognize that and then try and remain balanced in those situations. So, then take a couple of deep breaths, realize how I feel and what makes me feel better. Sometimes it can be something as simple as, wait, I think I'm cranky because I'm hungry. So maybe I'll have a bite of food, take a deep breath, and suddenly your outlook changes. So I think it's just made me very, very much in tune with my emotions and how my body actually connects to that, and has definitely helped me understand it and regulate it a bit more. And one of the ways that I think all of you can sort of try, I think yoga is really, really fantastic for helping to get that mind and body connect. If you can't go out on these extreme expeditions, which I think a lot of us can't for the next little while with the lockdown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. Vinita, next question.
So my next question is, usually girls are not encouraged for physical tasks, and you had your father as your biggest support. So can you tell us the bond that you shared with your father?
So I think when it comes to both of my parents, I've always grown up very, very aware that I'm fortunate that to have had parents that encouraged me to do what I want, whatever I wanted, and my gender wasn't a concern. And I know that that isn't the case for a lot of girls in India. And so, actually, climbing together with dad, it's always been, with a motive. And when it came to actually climbing Everest, we had this big message that we wanted to share to families all over India. Other than climbing with dad, who is one of the best people to climb with, I mean, it's such a special thing to share with your father. Climbing as a father daughter team was important to us because we wanted to share this message to families all over India. We wanted to say that, hey, listen, us girls, we can do so much. There's nothing that we can't achieve. But I think we can achieve a lot more and reach a lot higher if our families are supporting us and if they're there as pillars of strength for us. And that was sort of the idea of climbing together. It was to sort of, tell all of our country people to support us girls, because I think there's a lot that we can do.
My third question to you is, any funny incident that you can recall from one of your journeys?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last question.
Any funny incident that you can recall from one of your journey?
Any funny incident? There definitely, I think the funniest and the most fun times of expeditions are after you're done with your day, right? If it's a good day, sometimes all the expedition members will gather together at the end of the day, or whether you're waiting to acclimatize or something like that. And then, that part is the best part of the expedition, because everyone's together, you're laughing, you're like, singing silly songs, you're doing weird dances, you're playing games, and it's just so much fun. There are so many memories where, for example, on our Everest expedition, we had people from all over India, and many of us didn't even speak the same language. And but at the end of the day, when you're all together and you're doing silly things, and whether it's funny dances, or you're like beating someone in a game, and the expressions and everything, it just makes it so much fun. And it's such a good time. I've had countless amazing fun memories up on the mountain. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Vinita, for your participation. So, yeah, I have a question next. Uh, what has been your greatest source of motivation to keep moving forward?
What has been my greatest source of motivation? I think, um, with reference to adventure, it's there's so much to explore and there's so much to see. Each and every time you go on an expedition, right, it's this mind-blowing experience. Of course, there are times where it's tough, but that feeling of happiness and satisfaction you get at the end of an expedition, it's uncomparable. And it's just within, like, I don't know, about 6 months of me being in the city, I'm already like itching, and I'm like, okay, where do we go next? What should we do? And so this lockdown has certainly been an interesting time because it's given
Yeah.
me time to reevaluate and appreciate sort of time spent in one place and sort of slowing down in life. And I think everything has its positives, and it's important to constantly keep looking at that. But but I'm aware that this is a way of life for me, and it's something that I know I want to do. And then with reference to, I think my biggest motivation is when I was 17, right before I went on my Greenland expedition, I actually visited a home for children whose parents have leprosy. And though these kids are perfectly healthy, they are ostracized from society because people incorrectly believe that they also have leprosy and that they can pass it on to them. So what this home does is it provides food, education, and shelter for these kids. And when I visited the home at that time, it was only for boys. And
Okay.
having grown up with such a supportive family, which was always like girl power and you can do anything, I was very
Yeah.
confused, like, why don't you want to have girls in here? And the management said they were a bit worried about taking on the responsibility of having women or girls. And so I spoke to the management, and with the help of my parents, we said, come on, if you don't do it, who will? And they completely agreed. They were amazing, and they said, okay, we'll bring the girls in if you bring the money in. And so I used my expedition skiing across Greenland to actually raise funds for these girls. So we managed to raise 10 lakhs at that time, and we were able to bring 12 girls into the home when I was 17. So that's class 11. And since then, it's actually grown. It's been about 8 years since, and we've had, instead of 12 girls now, we have 40 girls at the home. Instead of two little rooms, we have a huge house for them. And these girls, I mean, they're like my little sisters. I go visit them, as much as I can. And I think whenever I go meet them, I'm so humbled to see how happy they are and how grateful they are for whatever
Yeah.
little they have, right? For things that we consider sort of basic necessities. For them, those things are privileges. And I mean, they're leading like such a happy, cute, wonderful life. And I think
Right.
just simply meeting them, it makes me grateful for what I have, but it also makes me determined to go out and keep doing things and to keep pushing boundaries and breaking stereotypes, so that I can hopefully inspire them to do the same.
Yeah, I think that's the whole idea because I can totally relate to you when you said that you've been itching to get out because I'm out traveling with children all the time. Every month there is one trip, and here I am, find myself. But fortunately, I have been meditating twice every day with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar ji, and those meditations have helped me to stay calm and introspect, reflect on the bigger purpose that I wish to contribute to my life. So, my next question is a slightly very, I would say, intense because it's about what were the scariest moments of your adventures when you felt the most vulnerable and helpless, and how did you overcome them?
Um, so I think one of the scariest moments I've ever encountered was while we were on Everest, right? Dad and I were climbing, and this was the summit attempt. So this is we're climbing through the night and hoping to reach the summit. And about an hour before the summit, we were climbing strong. Everything was great. Everything was well. Dad looked at me and he turned back, right? And he was like, "Yeah, I can't breathe." And basically, my heart stopped. I was like, what do you mean? What had happened was the oxygen mask, right, that supplies oxygen to us while you're climbing up at that altitude, it had stopped working. And it was a really, really frightening moment. I think the problem was I had lost a lot of weight while climbing. Again, you do while climbing, you're doing about 10 to 15 hours of like
Right,
physical activity,
right,
and you're in these really extreme cold conditions. You
yeah,
don't feel like eating, you can barely sleep, like, and the problem is the minute you stop moving,
yeah,
you get very cold very fast. And so, Dad and I stopped for about 2 minutes, and he said, Diya, you can't stop moving because you have significantly less reserves than me. And, because he's a little bigger. And so he was like, that Diya, there were two options at that point. I could either turn around or keep going forward, but I couldn't stop with him. And there wasn't enough space also because there were a couple of climbers coming from behind us. So, he didn't hesitate. He said, Diya, you keep going. And I had to sort of, make the very, very difficult decision to keep sort
my
of
God,
moving forward while
right,
Dad waited and tried to figure out what was wrong with his mask.
Yeah.
And at that point, I mean, Dad and I have been climbing for long enough that, it wasn't that I couldn't do it without him. Of course, he's my partner. He's my favorite person to climb with, but my climbing buddy. But sort of this feeling of like knowing that I have to go forward and he's back there and I don't know what's happening. It was too dark. I kept trying to turn back, but at some point we turned the corner and I couldn't see him anymore. And I remember actually when I reached the summit, it was still dark. It was about 4:30 in the morning, and suddenly the winds had died down and everything, and I sat down right below the summit of Everest, and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking to myself, oh God, what's going to happen? And I'm looking at the people sort of walking in, just trying to see if I can catch a
Right.
glimpse of Dad. And that 15 minutes where or that so it was about an hour where we were separated, and it was one of the most frightening sort of situations in my life, because there's nothing you can do. You're exhausted. You're just waiting and hoping and praying. And but then it was so I'm sitting at the summit. It's still dark. The winds have died down, so it's not that cold anymore. And it was almost like there was some Bollywood director there hiding behind a rock, because just as the sun started to rise above the horizon, cue the dramatic music. I saw Dad slowly walking towards me. And then, both of us like hugged at the top of Mount Everest, and both of us were crying. And it was just a very dramatic, but absolutely amazing moment. And
Yeah.
it's something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
I mean, that is something completely unimaginable to what sort of emotions, range of emotions you would have been going through at that point of time. I mean, that's what I was wondering. So I saw his photograph at the summit. How did he make it? And wow. So this brings me to my next question. What does family mean to you? And considering that you have done amazingly numerous adventures with your father, what would be your recommendation to parents out there in terms of, bringing up their children?
Um, Family is everything to me. And, I think when it comes to expeditions like this, it's very easy to be like, I climbed the mountain. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there's a huge support system that's behind you. And, without that support system, climbs like this would be impossible. And so, not only is it sort of the love and the support that I get from my mom and my younger sister, and of course, Dad, that gets me through these expeditions, but it's the Sherpas who are our guides on the mountain. They're our family too. It's the other team members, the teammates that who are with you throughout the expedition, who you have those funny moments with, who you're
Right.
laughing with, keep your spirits up. They're my family too. I think girls all over India, who need I think everyone, I think we all are a part of this big, huge global family. And it's important that we remember that and constantly just try and support each other and sort of
Yes.
move together as a society and as a country,
Yeah.
as a race, as humanity,
Yes.
to do better things and to sort of support each other. I think these small instances of, or these big instances where there are situations all over the world which are sort of, um, which aren't really great, where there's lots of discrimination. I think all of that needs to end. I think we need to start looking at each other and start recognizing that we are all family, and we all need to look past the differences that are at the surface and look inside, because adventure teaches you that connect of humanity. We're all humans at the end of the day, and that connect is um, present world over. Doesn't matter. And when it comes to parents, encouraging or doing things with your kids, I feel like in India, unfortunately, there is this big stress on only studies.
Yeah.
I think studies are important, don't get me wrong. I think it's important to excel and to do well in whatever you put your mind to. But I think parents, if they support their kids in things that the kids are actually passionate about, and it might be things that are offbeat. It might be things like music or mountaineering or dancing or cooking or whatever it is that girls and boys want to do. Firstly, I don't
Absolutely.
think you should never assign a gender to it, you know. And secondly, I think just try, let your kids try, let them explore, because that's actually what's going to develop a personality, and make them more interesting people to talk to at the very least.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what you said reminded me of this saying which is there in our scriptures of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is that the whole world is one family. And I don't know if you have noticed or seen, but yeah, our founder Sri Sri Ravi Shankarji, who's a global humanitarian. So this is the space where he comes from, and he's been going around the globe, working on numerous fronts and resolving conflicts across various geographies, uniting people from different parts of the world under the tenet of culture and music and arts, spirituality. So definitely, what you said with respect to parents shielding their children, being overprotective about them, because like I've traveled with children from across the geography of this country, and one thing that I find is that parents are overly protective about exposing their children to a risk, which of course is is a parenting instinct. But then if they're not able to give them those sort of opportunities that you have received, I believe it sort of doesn't lead to overall development of the child. Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to also sort of mention is that adventure is often associated with someone being a daredevil or taking lots of risks. But I
Yeah.
think that there are a couple of things that are very very important, in terms of you always have to make sure that you're minimizing the risks, right?
Yeah.
I don't really look at myself as a big risk taker when I'm going out on the expeditions, because
Right.
number one, I've prepared for it as hard as I possibly can, both in terms of like, whether it's the equipment I'm taking or, physical preparedness. I
Yeah.
always make sure that, I am experienced enough for the level of the expedition that I'm going on, and that dad and I are embarking on. And you always have to, if you're going with a provider, you have to do your due diligence. You have to make sure, especially in sports like this, where there is this risk factor. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that the provider you're going with is very very experienced and knows what they're doing, and that you don't take shortcuts when it comes to equipment. You do have to invest in good quality equipment, and
Right.
so that you minimize that risk. Because again, I would love for all of you to go out and go on a hike or do something absolutely amazing,
Yeah.
adventurous, whatever it is that excites you. But the one thing I want to say is that make sure you do it safely,
Yes.
and that you do research. This isn't something that you just wake up tomorrow and you say, I'm going to go climb this like 6,000-meter mountain. There is training involved. There is, just as you wouldn't go and give a test, just wake up one day and be like, I'm going to be a doctor and give the test the next day. Similarly, you
Right.
can't just be like, I'm going to be a mountaineer and wake up and climb a mountain the next day. You
Yeah.
do need to, put in that same amount of hard work and preparation, and sort of, and if you don't, similarly, just as you would then fail your doctor's test, similarly you may not be able to make it or achieve those goals. And unfortunately, in adventure and in mountaineering, if you don't put that preparation in, the failure can have sort of more serious consequences. So I do want all of you to go out and experience adventure, and because it's amazing and it's life changing. But make sure that you do it safely, and that you do enough research, and that you go with people who are experienced, or you get recommendation or advice from people who are experienced and know what they're doing.
Yeah. That is absolutely the word of caution is absolutely required to do it with an expert guidance as well. So Venu's been waiting for quite some time. Venu, you have a question to ask.
Yeah. So my next question is, what do you hope to achieve which you would you make feel successful? Example, more women in IT, more girls getting educated. How can we help each other achieving our dreams? Yeah,
So
so
that's such a good question, and I think there's so much scope in this country for women and for girls. I think each and every um, girl has like the most potential, and boys, of course. But I do think that till for me, success personally, if I even, I don't know, I think even even one person sort of seeing this, or some, whether it's a father, a brother, a girl, a mom, a sister, anyone, a grandparent seeing this and sort of changing their thinking, I think that would be sort of amazing. I would definitely like to see a change in our society when it comes to sort of the way women are perceived, and I think it's definitely happening slowly but surely. And I'm excited for it. I think India is progressing in terms of how much support we give our women, and this should never stop. It should be a constantly evolving process, both in terms of supporting our girls and our boys.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, we'll go to Vinuta now. So, like you mentioned earlier, for those of you who joined us at a later stage, Vinuta is a doctor herself from Bangalore who has joined us. And like Diya mentioned, that it requires a lot of preparation in terms of science and management to even to go on an adventure. It's not just blindly going on a risk-taking activity. So, Vinuta, you have some question that you wish to ask?
Yeah, my next question is, what can our generation do to protect and make our environment better?
So, what can our generation do to protect and make our environment better? I think this is an amazing question too. When you're out on these extreme expeditions, often because you're in these remote parts of our planet, you can actually see the effects of global warming, of climate change firsthand. When I was out in Greenland, actually, while we were sea kayaking along the coast, we actually saw a great increase in the number of mosquitoes. And when we spoke to the local people, we were told, actually, the Inuits told us that this had happened over the past 10 years because of the increase in the temperature. Um, in Greenland, and that's really scary because it's one of the northernmost parts of our planet. And so I think, firstly, understanding that there's this world out there, right, which is being affected by the consequences of our actions. So, firstly, I think, and one thing is spending out time outside and in nature, you definitely realize that. So, I think, there's definitely many things that one can do. And of course, the more motivated you are, you can try and make a bigger and bigger impact. But I would say start small. Don't get lazy and say, it's too much, I can't start at all. I would say, start with the small things at home, whether it's, not wasting water, whether it's not wasting food, making small changes in the amount you consume, as like buying things unnecessarily and stuff that you don't need. So of course there's reduce, right, reuse, recycle, the 3 R's. But there is now, a fourth R, which is rethink. And so rethink the ways your daily life actually is wasteful or maybe is harmful to the environment, and try and reduce that. I think one of the most amazing things about this whole global lockdown, in some sense, has been that it has positively impacted our environment, and you realize, how much we have been sort of had this negative impact on Mother Nature. So I think in whatever small way we can, to keep continuing our efforts to sort of reduce our consumption, and trying to make as big of a, because even a small drop can make a very, very big impact.
Yeah, truly. In fact, I think in the last 2.5 months, Mother Nature would have recuperated quite a lot. But I'm just anxious to see what it's going to turn out, because they are, I mean, for instance, we live in Gurgaon, and to witness the double rainbow the other day was quite a delight. And
Incredible.
we don't know when we're going to witness it next in this lifetime. But anyhow, so we have somebody from cooler climates, Aditi, who has been with part of this conversation. Aditi is from Himachal Pradesh, and she's a cute little angel. Aditi, are you there? So Aditi has been
Yes,
waiting.
can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you. Please ask your question.
Okay. So
We're not able to
from
see
being
you.
a trainee to becoming an instructor.
Sorry, Aditi.
Could you repeat the question, Aditi, please?
How was your journey from being a trainee to becoming an instructor?
How is my journey from being a trainee to becoming an instructor? Um, it's been amazing. Obviously, I mean, it's one of the most exciting things to sort of to share experiences, adventures, and excitement and passion for something, and to be able to then, share it with other people. I think it's one of the most, fun things to do. And I think it's really, really important to always to try, and see what are the things that you're good at and try and share them with your friends and your family and other people. And so no matter, what it is or what your experience level is, if you're focused and excited and passionate about something, I think it's always fun to share and hear what other people think, and to try and excite them about things that you're excited about. So it's been an amazing journey, and it's still continuing. I think in some ways there are many times where I still feel like a trainee and there's still so much to learn, but then it's obviously super exciting to be able to teach other people and share my experiences. So I haven't stopped being a trainee, but it's been exciting to be an instructor at some points as well.
You have another question.
So my question is, there are children who have fear of heights, scared of unknown. Are they missing out something? How can they overcome it?
So that's a really good question, Aditi. And I think when it comes to the outdoors, or when it comes to anything, I think all of us have fear, right? Like, fear is a very normal and natural thing. I can't tell you that, like, during any of my expeditions, that I didn't feel any fear at all. Fear is a big reality, and it's something that you have to deal with every day. People are scared about what is life going to be after this. Right now, in our current situation, people are scared about not doing well in school. People are scared about, worried about their health. There are so many things that you constantly feel fear, right? But I think it's very, very important not to let that fear paralyze you, right? You have to understand that fear and then use it. It's a valid concern, of course, being fearful of heights. You're not, as humans, we're probably not supposed to be that far up high. So I mean, you have to understand that each person's body is different, and you have to look inwards and see, is this a fear that I can work with? Is this a fear that I can change? Is this something I can do about, is there something that I can change about this feeling of fear that I'm feeling? Small steps. So make small changes. Don't stray. You don't have to straight away go bungee jumping, but you can, you can maybe go on a little hike with some heights. So make small steps to try and change that fear into sort of, right? Fear is just worry about not knowing, right? Or just the unknown. So try and make whatever it is that you're scared of known to you. Try and work towards it. And if you don't try, then you're never going to find out whether you can do it. So I think, unfortunately, the biggest worry with fear is that it stops you from doing things that you probably could be able to do. So don't let that fear paralyze you. Work with that fear, understand it, and try and change it. It would be my advice.
Wow, great. So my next question is, how did you spend your time as a child?
So how did I spend my time as a child? I used to so after I would come back from school, I would take every opportunity that I would get to, like, go outside. So I was constantly active, whether it was taekwondo or tennis. In the morning, I would always have, I was in the swim team. So in the morning, I'd have my, 2 hours of swim practice every day. Then I'd go to school, come back, do something outdoors. Spent a lot of time reading. I still love reading. I didn't watch that much TV growing up. I think I watch a lot more TV now. Oops. Especially, but spent a lot of time reading, and there's, like, so many amazing books out there. And then, of course, spent a fair amount of time studying. I think, just normal kid stuff. Tried to, yeah. Lots of mangoes in the summer. Still do that.
The next one is, what were the challenges you faced balancing your studies and outdoor activities? How did you balance both?
So I think you do. It is tough, right, to find a balance not only between studies and outdoor activities, but spending time with your friends, doing things that are maybe more relaxing. Um, it is, of course, it's tough, but I think if things are important to you, you'll find ways to sort of make time for them. Definitely, I think cutting out sort of spending vast amounts of time on social media is one way that you can suddenly find that you have a lot of time in your life. And so limiting amount of, the time that you spend online, just wasting time online, and sort of then using that huge chunk of the day that you suddenly find yourself with to do the things that you love, that you're excited about. And I think, again, as I said, studies are important, and I think discipline is also very, very important when it comes to working hard to achieve your dreams. So it is important that you spend time doing that, even though it might not be as fun. But yeah, you'll always find time to do the things that you love. I definitely think cutting out time on social media is a good way to do that, though.
Thanks. So I wish to ask a question that, and this is again, because slightly more intense again. Have you ever felt that climbing a mountain isn't enough from inside? Have you ever felt that, for instance, one aspect is the adventurous bit, you want to go achieve it, but do you feel somewhere inside that you have climbed so many summits, but there is still more to what you are seeking?
Of course. I think the biggest thing with mountaineering and climbing is that you can't just be like, okay, I climbed Everest when I was 24. If after that I was like, acha, okay, now I'm done with everything that I need to do in life, I think I'd be quite stressed out.
You perhaps would have made a camp there itself.
Yeah, just sit down maybe. So I think in life, right, you'll always have goals and you'll always have things you want to do, but it's important to also have sort of, goals beyond that goals. And, there are so many places when it comes to adventure, it doesn't have to only be like climbing these mountains that are recognized. There are so many beautiful mountains out there in so many places and things that I want to do and explore and go to.
Right.
But beyond that, and we spoke about this a little, and I think my sort of driving force and something that I feel really passionate about is girls and women in India, and trying to empower them, and sort of working hard to do that. And so I think no matter where I am in my mountaineering journey, or in my work journey, I think that's something that's constantly a source of inspiration, and something that I'm constantly trying to brainstorm about and trying to sort of build on.
Yeah. So how do you deal with the negative emotions and stress?
Negative emotions and stress are, of course, as I said, it's a reality, right? No matter how positive you are and what you do, there will be times where you do feel sad, or you do feel frustrated with certain things. I think in those times it is important to detach yourself from the situation. So always look at it from a different perspective. The other thing that I really like to do is sort of, take a deep breath and remind myself of all the positive things that I have going on in my life. So, whenever I'm faced with a situation where I'm feeling sad or frustrated or anxious, I try and remember all the things that I have to be grateful for, all the things that I should be, happy about. And I sort of use that. Again, there are a couple of other things that I do. Sometimes it's just about going and giving my parents and my younger sister a big hug, and that'll honestly like immediately change my mood. Calling my best friend and speaking to her, maybe going out for a run. If the anger really, if the frustration isn't going, the negativity, after doing all of this, then I just go out for a run and I tire myself out until I can't be, negative anymore.
Yeah.
So I think there are many ways to deal with it. But definitely the most important thing is to not wallow in it, right? Don't keep talking about the negativity, don't keep talking about the frustration, don't keep thinking about it, because the more you think, I'm so frustrated, I hate this, I'm so angry, the angrier, frustrated, and more sad you'll get. So
Right.
whatever it is, however it is you're feeling, actively try and change that, whether it's one of the ways that I do, or find
Yeah.
your own ways, find what makes you happy, whether it's I don't know, like going out and playing with your friends, or
Yeah.
find a way to make yourself happy, read a book that you love, whatever it is.
Right. Aditi has a quick question for you. So we have, I think, 2, 3 rapid fire questions also. Aditi?
Okay, so my question is that I've heard that you do both skiing and mountaineering. So if you had a choice, which one would you choose?
Aditi, sorry, I think you got stuck, but did you say what would I choose between skiing and mountaineering?
Yes, yes.
So, okay, I'll tell you. So, mountaineering, right? It's one of those sports where while you're doing it, a lot of the times it's very difficult. And there are many times where you're questioning, wait a second, why am I doing this? I'm stuck in a tent right now in the cold and I can't do anything. And all of my friends are enjoying the heat in Delhi, eating mangoes. Hmm. So then of course once you do it and you're like, you spend time and you finish your expedition, that feeling that you get is absolutely amazing. Skiing is the type of activity where you're going down the mountains and it's super fast and it's super fun, and then you come back and you can come back to like a more comfortable place for sure. You have attached bathrooms, so it's a little bit more luxurious, I would say, than mountaineering. So it just kind of depends on what I am in the mood for. I think it's like, I love them both. And each of them has their pros and their cons. So just I love them both. I think too much of either could get a bit much. So I constantly like to keep switching up in between both of them.
Thanks. Venu?
Yeah. So, in your way, a little bit, how are you empowering women in your community?
So, Venu, I try and do as many talks as I can. I try and speak to as many girls and boys as I can. So especially before the lockdown, I was going and speaking at a lot of schools and trying to sort of share my adventures. I try and write about it, blog about it, um, and uh, and then of course, do as much as I can with reference to the home in Haridwar that I help support. Um, I think there's always a lot more you can do when it comes to these things, and it's something that I'm constantly thinking about and constantly trying to do more about and for.
Okay. Yeah.
Go to Aditi. Aditi, you have a quick question.
Okay, so I'm mainly running out of questions right now,
So,
but I still have one question left. So it is like I'm very excited talking to you. I love talking to you. I mean, so my next question is, what are you reading currently?
What am I reading currently? So I'm currently reading a book called The Art of Happiness, and it's about some of the teachings from the Dalai Lama, and it's been really good, especially during this time of the lockdown, where I think a lot of people are frustrated that they can't live life as usual and that they can't meet their friends. And so I really enjoyed reading it because it's given me a different perspective on what it is to be happy, and again, how to sort of how to change your mindset when it comes to things.
all right. Aditi, I think you can ask the last question. Here it is. So,
So,
question is,
okay, my last question is, what do you do of all the prizes that you win?
Sorry.
What is your message to all viewers watching this interaction?
So my message to all viewers watching this interaction is that I hope all of you, um, you know, I think there's a way to achieve success. Work hard, be determined, stay positive, stay focused, and true to what your goal is, and work tirelessly to sort of achieve that goal. And I am absolutely sure that all of you will reach heights much higher than Mount Everest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deeya. Thank you so much, Venu and Aditi and Vinutha, who's there backstage, for joining us for this interaction. So it's been really wonderful. Though ideally, we would have loved to have a longer duration of time, but we are glad that owing to the lockdown, we are able to connect from different parts of the country and get this opportunity to interact with you. And definitely look forward to more such interactions. I would say outdoor activities as well. Perhaps maybe, who knows, we can have these children gather together and you can take them out on adventure
As soon as
sometime in near future.
we will all do some fun adventures.
Yes, we would have more apprentices joining you from different parts of the country. So, for those of you joining us at a later stage, Ms. Deeya Bajaj, along with her father, Padma Shri Mr. Ajit Bajaj, has climbed Mount Everest, and she has climbed 6 out of those 7 summits across the globe. And she will be going on her next adventure as soon as the lockdown ends. So, thank you so much, Deeya, for giving her precious time. Yes, thank you so much. See you another time. Thank you.
See you
Thank
guys.
you.
It was lovely talking to you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. This happens in the calls.
Okay.
Kritika, we can go offline now.